Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner, brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Hello, and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner. I'm one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparo, and I have a guest that I'm very excited to talk to today. It is a multi-Eisner-winning artist and writer. You may know their work from Invisible Kingdom, Odyssey, co-created with Matt Kine. Invisible Kingdom, co-created with G. Willow Wilson. They were the artist on Black Bolt, Bloodstained Teeth, Batman City of Madness, Aquaman Andromeda, and a series that people don't talk about enough that I really loved with Sami Kivela, Machine Gun Wizard, which was, I loved it. But please welcome to the podcast, Christian Ward. Christian.
Thank you, Jimmy. Oh, you've started this podcast off well. I'm now in a very good mood.
Oh,
you
great.
You know what you're doing.
Well, first off, I'm a big fan of your artwork. I thought I don't know if with Batman City of Madness, that's what I was going to say. I felt like you were kind of the perfect person for that, to kind of not recreate, like Arkham Asylum and those types of things, but you have a very distinct style. There's certain artists out there. You are one of them. When you see a cover, you know that it's your work. Like, you have a very distinct style and signature. I was a big fan of the Casper Wingard and Dan Waters Homesick Pilot series, and I think you did a couple of covers from them. I had issue 2 with your variant cover. Absolutely loved it. But in terms of, you're not just an artist, you're also a writer. And I'm a big fan of Sami Kivela's work. A lot of the stuff he's done, the work he did with like Lonnie Nadler and Zach Thompson, in Undone in Blood. I think I got that right.
That's fine, yeah.
And Ryan K. Lindsay, Everfrost. He was the artist on that. I really like. So, and I thought Tommy Gun Wizards, it was a 4-issue series. You can correct me if I'm wrong, from Dark Horse. It was kind of Elliot Ness and the Untouchables, basically, going after Al Capone, but instead of kind of typical mob stuff from the 30s, racketeering, bootlegging, they were selling lick, if I remember correctly, which was, it gave you powers. And so it was this great mix of 1930, late 20s, early 30s, like mob stuff with this kind of like sorcery, wizard stuff to it. Great title too, Machine Gun Wizards. And I just thought, man, 4 issues, but I just thought it was so fun, so inventive. I mean, we've seen gangster stuff, we've seen wizard stuff. I don't think I ever saw like quite in that like realm. And I mean, Elliot Ness is such a fun character, a person and character to kind of like play with. And Al Capone, it was just, I think it came out in like 2019, and I loved it. It was one of those things that I was just like, this is great. So that was, I think, my first real exposure to, your writing. And I've picked up things and read things and checked your stuff out, since then, the past few years. So, again, was super excited to see that you were doing Batman City of Madness. I paired with Rom V on Aquaman Andromeda, which was I think a Black Label book.
That's right,
and so now all of this has led to you are the writer for the first ever solo Two-Face series. Issue 1 is coming out December 4th. I think not that long from when we're recording this. So I don't know. That was like listeners are probably sick of hearing from me. They want to hear from you. That was a long preamble.
No, just keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
I'm loving it.
I guess I kind of want to start with your work for DC, since that's kind of our focus for my DC in December. How did you first kind of like get approached? Had you done smaller things for them before? Like, what
Yes.
kind of led
Yeah.
up to City of Madness?
I mean, I think kind of like I've got quite a I think one thing that gives me an advantage in regards to working with lots of different publishers and editors is I'm quite well known as a cover artist. So even though I do series, more than anything I probably do covers. So I've worked with pretty much every publisher there is in comics, and I've done a cover for them. And when you do covers for any editor, it's all about a lot of the time you might be getting them out of trouble, or you might be kind of like you're not getting them into trouble by getting a kind of like a comic cover in on time because I've got to get solicits. So it's a
Right.
really good way. Oh, it's been a really good way. Not that it's been conscious, but over the last sort of like 15 years of getting in kind of editors' good books. I'm the guy that they can rely on, and I can get a cover to them when they need it. I can hit my deadlines. If an editor emails me and they need a cover the next day or even the day, I'm the guy that can do that. So it kind of like puts you in a good relationship with editors, and it kind of makes it easier for them to go, oh, Chris is the guy that he won't let us down, and he's a steady hand.
Okay.
So I think that's one benefit, and then from that, it was James Tinian that kind of, well, actually no, it wasn't. The very first DC short story I did was for Rob Williams on Suicide Squad back
Oh,
in the New 52. So I did an Enchantress short, and that was ages ago. That was probably 9 years ago.
okay.
That I did that. And then it went quiet for ages. And then James Tinian, me and James became friends, and I did a Swamp Thing short with him. And again, you're showing that you can hit a deadline, and it's all about
Right.
you want to get on with people and
Yeah.
have a rapport and be excited about what you're doing. If you work with people and they're like, moo, you don't really, you're not
Yeah.
going to get very far.
Nobody wants that. Was that
No,
during Tinian's Justice League Dark run?
no, he was doing Batman at the time, and
Okay.
it was I believe it was it was a one shot, a Swamp Thing one shot with lots of different artists in it.
Okay.
And I've always wanted to do Swamp Thing, and like to this day, it still makes me laugh because he wrote me a brilliant story because it's James, but Swamp Thing does not appear. So I'm like reading the script, going, oh, it's really good, James. Where's Swamp Thing? He's on in it, but still, it was really good. And yeah, so that was the first, and then I did, and then I think the next thing I did is I pitched a short story that appeared. I forget where. It was a 5-page short story. Urban Legends, that was it. I did Batman
Oh,
Urban Legends,
okay.
and it was a 5-page short story that I wrote and drew. So that was the first thing that I wrote and drew for DC. Apart from a Vertigo, I did a Vertigo short back in the day.
Right.
But that was the first kind of like DC superhero type stuff that I wrote and drew. And yeah, then I got an email about partnering with Ram. And I've known Ram for years. Like before Ram was even in the industry, like I met Ram at a comic convention in London back when I used to live in London. So I knew of Ram, and obviously his rise was spectacular and an incredible writer. And he had a really interesting take on Aquaman, a character who I admit I had no real interest in, but I did have an interest in working with Ram, and I had an interest in his take on the character, and so that really was kind of like my first foot in the door of doing like a long form story there. And then I got on so well with Matt Levine and Chris Conroy, who were the editors of Black Label. And when we finished, we'd all enjoyed working together so much that Chris Cromwell was, what's next? And he'd seen
Right.
me posting I posted a kind of like an image of a Cthulhu-like Batman who was Batman Below
Yeah.
on
I'm very
Twitter.
familiar. I remember when you
Yeah,
posted that.
and it blew up. And
Yeah.
And Chris was very. He used to look. Is there a story? And because I'm obsessive, there was. And I was able to sort of pitch him within the hour with the full breakdown of what the story was. And we went, and it just happened.
Wow.
And then lifelong dream. I mean, it's just incredible, incredible. Always wanted to do Batman. Yeah, as you can see, I am surrounded by him. Little there and there, and Gotham is the best. I mean, I wouldn't want to live there, but it's the best.
And in terms of your love of, Batman, you said lifelong dream to get to do that character, and
Mm.
especially for something like City of Madness, because there's a lot of talk of in continuity or out, which that's not something that I'm overly concerned myself with. Like, I want a good story. If you put something outside of continuity, I don't. I mean, I read things out of order. I just want whatever. But
Yeah.
so when you was there any, like, artists that you looked to before, in terms of, like, there's been so many, like, quintessential Batman artists, like, is it difficult when you're tackling something like that to put your stamp on it? Are you trying to separate yourself from what others have done before, or are you just focusing on, like, "This is how I draw, and this is how I'm doing it?"
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's a little bit of both because City of Madness was very much a tribute and a love letter to Batman. And actually, if you go through it, there's a few conscious um, moments in it where I am kind of like referencing other artists. There's the obvious one is the Dave McKean.
Dave McKean, yeah.
When Batman goes into Arkham Asylum and he's referencing the night I got stuck in Arkham. I I use little motifs that are very sort of Dave McKean like, and I change the art to become a little bit more like Dave McKean. There's a page where, again in issue 1, where Batman's kind of like swinging for the night, and the light is shining up and casting a kind of the kind of a bat symbol of sorts behind him. But that's a reference to Jock's One Dark Knight, a more recent Batman, because Jock is such a seminal artist in Batman. So that's another that had to him.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Batman's kind of he's breaking the fingers of well, he's breaking the wrist of one of Two-Face's men, and he's kind of huddled over. That's a reference to Frank Miller from Dark Knight Returns. There's lots of little bits in it where I was just like, okay, these are my favorite Batman artists, and this is me aping them, a reference to them. And there's the scene at the end where he's kind of again at the end of the first issue, when Batman's kind of sort of leaping for the night and he's almost a silhouette. That's a reference to one of the first Batman images that's often used in his kind of like iconography. So it's there were conscious decisions to kind of like ape artists in City of Madness, but also when I'm just doing my thing, to be an artist and to kind of like have any sort of success, you have to sort of step out on a ledge and just do your own thing. It's really a case of just being patient and waiting for the world, hopefully, to catch up with you and decide that what you do is something that they like. And you have to just have confidence that what you're doing is right. And I've been fortunate now. I've been doing this now for 15 years, or just over 15 years, about 18 now. And I've accrued fans, and editors want to work with me, and my books review well, and so that tells me that people like my work, and so that gives me confidence to go. I'll just be me. I'll just do me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not Jim Lee. I can't draw like Jim Lee and do the typical superhero Batman stuff. I do me, and I think that's what's really exciting about a character like Batman, that he is so flexible that you can have, an artist like Jim Lee and Dan Mora, who does like the best superhero stuff at the
Yeah,
moment, and
Dan's work is
just
pretty impeccable.
he's just like, in my mind, the best superhero artist working today. But also, Chris Samney, Frank Quietly, you can have these very
Yeah.
disparate artists. And then And then you can have people like me who are like a little bit more experimental, a little bit more painty, a little bit more abstract. You know, you know, Dave McKean and Bill Sinkovich, and that's really cool to have a character who's that. You can do fluid, that you can do that many different things with him. You only need to look at like other media. I mean, you got Lego Batman sitting alongside the Batman. I mean, they couldn't be more
Yeah,
different, but both of them are equally Batman. I mean,
right.
I can't think of another character who's as flexible as that, and it's one of the reasons why I love him so much. Because if I'm in the mood for like a noiry kind of like pulpy thing, I can have it. If I'm in the mood for a serial killer thriller, I can have it. If I'm in the mood for something with tentacles, I can have it. And you know, who else can? What other character can give you that?
Yeah, and even not just throughout the history of Batman. I mean, that's an interesting point. I was just while you're saying that, I thought about, just going to your local comic shop and seeing what's on the shelves. With your City of Madness, and just in the past few years, you've gotten to see not just the typical superhero take on Batman, but also things like Raphael Grandpa's, take
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Batman, and your, with your take on Batman, and Liam Sharp did, I think what was it? Was it with Garth Ennis?
reptile, reptile.
Did his take on Batman? And there's such different styles, but you're right. It's all Batman, and it all sits
Yeah,
on that shelf together.
yeah,
That's a
it's
good point.
incredible. Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean,
so,
like I
no,
mean,
go
even
ahead.
like kind of like even like the animated series. You can. It's. I've always loved him, and he's a buffet, and you can go to him and you can like really cherry pick different flavors, and it's still him, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and then the other thing I've always liked about the character, no matter what media he's in, but especially in comics, is that you can push, whether or not as a writer or an artist, push in one direction, and get a totally different story that is still Batman. Whether or not you're going to play up the world's greatest detective, whether or not you're
Yeah,
going to play up the pathos of the orphan whose parents were murdered, whether or not you're gonna play up the lone vigilante, training and acquiring all these skills, whether you're going to play up the wacky rogues gallery, you can tweak that slightly. And there's just been some amazing, Batman stories. Is it more so the character that drew you to it, or you said like you love Gotham, although you wouldn't want to live there? Is there something in particular about the setting of Gotham that you're really wanted to play in that sandbox and continue to play with the new Two
yeah,
Face series?
yeah. I mean, I think Gotham's just I don't, everybody knows Gotham. You can go to a non-comic book reader and they know what Gotham is. And Gotham can be kind of a Tim Burton fairy tale gothic city, or it can be a more gritty kind of crime-ridden place like the Nolan films. For those people that don't read comics, but in the comics, it's a wild place. Like I read Dan Watters and Hayden Sherman's new book, Dark Patterns, which isn't out
Yeah.
yet. And the Gotham in that is just so surprising and so dangerous and so exciting. And it's great to kind of like to kind of contribute to that, to contribute to Gotham as a place, and
Right.
how does it, and how it feels. And I'm always really fascinated, like, why do people live there? But people do, it's like a city, like people, it's not just some people, it's a huge ecosystem of people that live there. I mean, there must be something there that keeps everyday people there,
Yeah.
that, do they just become blind to all the jokers poison the water again? I'll get your bottled water out of the fridge. I find that really like, it's really, I mean, it kind of goes back to kind of, Grant Morrison's very kind of infamous thing where he says, "Oh, well, who changes the wheels on the Batmobile?" And it's nobody to comic. I think you
Right.
always have to kind of keep a little bit of that in your mind, and it's you never want to weigh it down with too much reality. But just thinking about Gotham and just the dangerous elements of it, the kind of like the dreamlike elements of it, the excitement of it. It's a place where anything can happen. And as a writer, that's very tantalizing. I could kind of write anything will happen here, and I can't think of many fictional places where that's the case.
Yeah, that's true. In terms of Batman's rogues gallery, I mean, is Two-Face up there for you, or is there somebody else? I
No,
think no, Two-Face is
number
number
one,
one.
number one,
Okay,
number one. I wouldn't be writing his book if he was my favorite. That's just
okay.
like, and that's no, not even the Joker comes close for me. I mean, like you know, Joker's cool and he's fine and whatever, but like Two Face is 100% number one for me. Two Face is, I mean, the Joker is so different from Batman, and I think that's kind of why he is, Batman's arch nemesis, because he's completely different. They are chalk and cheese, and that creates a tension between them. But Harvey, he's a kind of dark mirror of Batman. He's still in the same way that you've got Bruce and Batman. You've got good Harvey and bad Harvey. They're two sides to the same person. And one of the things that I'm trying to do with this series is kind of remind people that as much as Harvey's a bad guy, that he used to be a good guy, and that good guy is still there, and he's been led into a world, or he has been led into a world of criminality by his bad half. But that doesn't necessarily mean that good side is still. It doesn't necessarily mean that good side is gone. It's still there. And what I find fascinating and tantalizing about this is, well, what happens when you're a good person surrounded by bad people and criminality, but you want to kind of get back up to the surface. You want to get back up to the civilized society. What do? Can you change the bad world? Can you influence the bad world with your good half? And is half a good side enough to make a difference? And that's a big part of the tension of the story. Can the good side of Harvey do enough good to outweigh the bad side?
That dynamic is what I think instantly, when I read the solicit, what instantly piqued my interest about the series. One, I've always liked Harvey Dent. I don't know if he's my favorite, Batman villain.
Oh,
I've always been,
see ya.
I've always,
Bye.
no, wait, Christian, he's up there. I will say I've always been kind of partial to Clayface myself.
Oh, I would say, yeah, Clayface and Joker are probably equal seconds
Yeah,
for me. Yeah.
I've always liked Clayface, but as there's always been something about Harvey Dent and Two-Face. As a lawyer myself,
Oh.
I I- I've always liked that aspect of it, and some of the tropes of Two-Face are some of the things that we typically see. The coin and the suit and all those different types of things. I thought that sometimes when he shows up, though, it's always just the bad side. He's always a villain.
Mhm.
And I'm always interested though, because we have he's Two-Face. Like I'm always like I feel like, and maybe it's just the things that I've read or seen. I feel like that side of him that was the district attorney is not really played up a lot. And so when I read the solicit for your Two-Face, like it sounds like oh, these are kind of going to be like equal players in this, and
Mhm.
we're really going to see the conflict of Two-Face. So, we're not going to see Two-Face the villain against Batman, which is what we typically see a lot of the time. We're going to see like Two-Face against Two-Face in
Two
this setting.
Face. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I want. I want to see somebody who is trying to do good and was a district attorney, as equal, or at least fighting for control with the other half of himself that is horribly scarred. And so that really piqued my interest because that's what I've been wanting in a Two-Face story. And
That's exactly what you're gonna get.
okay, all right, I'm back. We're okay now. You're gonna sit back down.
I'm fine. You've won me back over again.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, but especially if I looked like some of the preview pages. I haven't read it yet. Look, but because it's not out. But some of the preview pages, looked like we see Harvey like in a courtroom, and I was like,
Yeah,
great, yes, please let me see
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, let's just tip our hat to Fábio Veras, who is
Yes,
the series artist. It's his first DC book. He's done like I did. He's done like little shorts. But he did a Doom Patrol short, and he's done a Harley Quinn short, and this is his first full book, and he's smashing it. I mean, I remember when I pitched it, I said this should look a little bit Dick Tracy. That's what we're going to go for. We're going for like a Dick Tracy vibe, pulpy, and then just like a cast of weirdos, with just every strange kind of like, I'm really going for like D-list villains, the real wacky ones, and we're going to have a
oh,
whole parade of these guys coming through his court, as he tries to deal with the kind of the madness that happens in Gotham and trying to kind of, you know, keep that under control. And Fabio is just like every time he turns pages, I'm just like, mwah! And I think this guy's going to be, a real fan favorite. People are going to fall in love with him as an artist. And then we've got Ivan on the colors.
right.
And I can't say too much about what Ivan's doing because it kind of gives away some of the story, but you will see how Ivan is an integral part. I mean, every colorist is an integral part of the storytelling, but even more so with what Ivan's doing. There's something very key happening in this comic, and you'll get a sense of what that is when you get to the last page of issue 1.
Oh,
I
I'm
know.
excited. And because I always I'm sure you were just about to say this, but I am such a fan of letterers, and I think it's
Oh,
being lettered by Hassan
the best,
Otsmane-Elhaou. Oh, Hassan
the
is
best.
so good. I mean, just
He's incredible.
crazy talented. And yeah, so like what a creative team. But yeah, the preview pages that I've seen look fantastic. I mean, Fabio looks like he's been doing this for decades.
Yeah. He's not going to let anyone down. Like it's it's the it's like I had a really clear when I kind of like envisioned what it was going to look like when I because this series I pitched it to DC. It wasn't DC didn't come to me and say we want to do a Two-Face series. Um, I had a really what I thought was a really good idea, and they agreed, and I had a really clear idea of what it should look like, and it wasn't my art. It needed to be kind of pulpy and kind of noiry and a little bit crimey, but weird. Um, and at the time, I was talking to Katie Kubert, who was kind of handling the Bat offices while they were looking for the new head of Batman, who became Rob Levine.
Yeah.
And she just like, when I told her what I kind of wanted, it was like, I've got just the guy. And she showed me his pages, and I was just like, oh. And then we sent the email out to him, and I was, just, I've been in the scene for like, 15 years, 15, 18 years, whatever it's been. But as a writer, I've only been writing for the last 5 years. So I'm like, ooh, is he going to be up for it? But he was really excited, and it's just been a dream.
I like to ask, writers slash artists or
Mm,
artists slash writers, whatever, which one we put first. Because I'm always curious, like when you do, especially when you're doing art first and then you switch into writing, is
mhm.
is it easy for you to kind of like turn that off like your artist brain and be like, all right, we're collaborating, and the collaboration is different when I'm the writer and I'm working with an artist. To
100%.
not like get in the way. Is that easy for you to
Yep.
do? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, because I mean that's an ego thing. So I think once I've decided that this story doesn't suit my art, and it was the same thing you referenced Machine Gun Winters at the start of this. It's a similar thing, right? It's like kind of like pulpy, noiry kind of like vibe. That's just not my art. And so really, what you want to do is you want to look at what is the best for the story, not what's the best for me, what's the best for the story, and when it's once you've got to that choice, it's easier, and then you choose your artist and you let them go. It was the same with Patrick Reynolds on Bloodstained Teeth. I didn't he does what he does so beautifully. I don't have to say anything, could do anything, he can go. I mean, I would like to think that being an artist makes certain elements of being a writer easier because, for one, even though I'm not kind of like necessarily telling my collaborators the visualizations that I'm having in my head, the fact that I can visualize a script as drawings, as images, as I'm
Yeah.
going, helps me. I know the kind of the pragmatics of don't put too many people in a panel. If you've got 9 panels on a page, that's really headshot, maybe a little detail, little detail. Do you know what I mean? I
Right.
kind of know. I'm very aware of kind of like, you know, artists working healthily and not burning out, and not kind of, not putting too much weight on their shoulders. So I'm very kind of conscious of like, okay, we're going to have lots of detail here, but I'm going to give you a break over here. Um, it's I was on another podcast interview recently, and the interviewer compared it to actors who become directors. And I think that was actually that was quite on point, because I can keep in mind how I would feel as an artist, and what do I want in a script. um, and hopefully that helps me provide scripts that are enjoyable to work with, and I can give artists freedom to do what they do without kind of looking over their shoulder.
Yeah.
But if they do ask me for help, I'm very happy to do it. But all the people I've worked with have just been phenomenal artists, phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense in terms of bringing that skill, or at least that mindset of what you would like as an artist. Um, yeah, because you don't want to load up too many panels. Like sometimes writers might be focused on I'm telling the story, and you do when you start writing comics and you start working with an artist as a collaborator. It's like, hey, this is great. You've written a great story, but there's no way all of these people and all of these words are going to fit on page one, panel four.
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, to be clear, I mean, like, what the skills I'm kind of like talking about, it's not like there's plenty of amazing writers that can
Yeah,
do it as well.
sure.
I don't want to come on here and say because I'm an artist that makes me a better writer. It
No,
doesn't.
I don't think you come across that way. I
Yeah,
think your point is well taken.
yeah. I mean, I think I think a lot of it is um it's almost more about the welfare of the artist as it is about kind of like the formality of the script. You know, I'm a big, you know, there was that whole thing about like kind of like pros like having to give up personal life and social lives and weekends and working all through the night, and that is part of comics. Yeah, there's sometimes when you have to crunch a deadline and you're up working late, but I think it's important as artists that we don't kind of like put that on the pedestal and say that's the normal, it should be the normal, or kind of wear it as a badge of honor. And I certainly think about that when I'm writing for artists, that I don't put too much pressure on them to you know give them something that's really hard to achieve.
Right. No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
And so, well, let's talk a little bit more. I mean, I know you can't tease too much with Two Face, but I love talking about like obscure DC characters, and especially Batman has so many
So
of
many.
them, and not just in the comics and like the cartoons, and you know, um, I still remember. I mean, I'm 45, so I grew up watching reruns of the Adam West
Hmm.
T Burt Ward TV show because my dad loved it and he would put it on. And I mean King Tut and
Yeah, yeah,
Vincent Price as Egghead.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, the original Mr. Freeze.
oh
And
yeah.
and False Face. Do you remember False Face?
Oh my.
He was because there's a funny little thing actually. False Face in the show was because they couldn't use Two Face because it was too. So they put False Face in it. So
Really?
there's lots of little. I mean, I don't know why I would know that. I don't know why I would be researching that. I mean, I'm not saying anything. Um, but um, um,
Uh,
But yeah, no, I mean, like, I think, I mean, what's interesting is we just revealed that the issue 3 cover, that our amazing, I should also point out our amazing cover artist, Vladimir Rivers, who's just, oh my God, he's so good. Like, oh my God, he's delicious. His art, not him. I'm not going to eat him. I'm sure he is as well, but his art's
Yeah,
amazing.
you've moved past bloodstained teeth.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, so we revealed issue three's cover, and it's all out there to see. And our kind of antagonist for issue 3 is Baby Doll from the TV series, from the animated series. And I always loved the Baby Doll episode when the character is introduced. And what's really cool is even though she's had cameos in, like, she was in what Batman White Knight, you see her just in kind of like the foreground. She's never had a speaking role in the main DC continuity.
Oh, nice.
So like we had to kind of get it all approved by the lawyers and everything, make sure it was okay. But like, and that's like, to be able to kind of go, okay, we've got this monster of the week format. Every week we can have a different case for Harvey to sort of deal with. And I was like, who do I want to have? Who are my favorite characters in the Batman universe, both from the animated, maybe the 60s show, maybe from the films, and of course from the comics, and to be
Right.
able to go, cherry pick. Oh, that person would be great. That person would be great, and this person would be great. And that's been one of the best things about writing it.
That's
And then of
awesome.
course, kind of like sprinkling in a few new characters as well.
Oh, I love it. I wanted to, I thought I had seen I think you or I thought I saw posted the issue 3 cover, but I just wanted to look at it again. And it's great. I went and looked it up, and it came up on the website League of Comic Geeks. I don't know if you've ever
So
gone.
yeah, I'm on there all the time.
Yeah.
If you comment on that, I'm reading your comment, just
Oh,
so you
well,
know. Yeah.
the first comment by a Kevin Suarez says, "OMG, after so many years," in all caps, Baby Doll will finally make her appearance in the canon. We are truly winning.
We are winning. We are winning.
So Kevin's very happy.
Good. I'm glad Kevin's happy. I'm writing this for Kevin. It's funny. There's going to be lots of things in this book that are going to make people happy.
Well,
Do you know why I know?
wait.
Because
Yeah.
it's making me happy.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's the thing. Because I'm like such a big fan. I'm like, what do I want to see this character. I want to see that character. I want to see this character. And I want to see, I want to get to the nitty gritty of who Harvey is, this conflict between the good and the bad, but also like why is the bad side so bad? Let's get to the bottom of that, and really kind of like look at, I mean, I think kind of like going into City of Madness, like, City of Madness, even though it was cosmic horror, it was grounded in psychology and like looking at kind of trauma and what that does to a person. And obviously that's something that's really important to me as a writer. And so there's definitely going to be some of that in Two-Face. And I keep talking about it. I talked about it on this other interview I was on. But like issue 4 is the one that people are going to be like, what? Issue 4 is the one. So
issue 4.
Stick with me to issue 4.
All right.
That's
I
the
mean,
one.
I just think I'm such a fan of your work, and I think that I'm trying to think of the right way to articulate this, but the comics you have made, and if anyone has given any of those a chance, not your cover work is fantastic, but some of the ones that you have co-created, like Odyssey and Invisible Kingdom, I also really loved, or Machine Gun Wizards. I mean, even if someone hasn't, or they're listening to this podcast because they love indie comics and that's what they read, and they haven't really checked out Big Two stuff or DC stuff in a while, I think you have earned enough in this industry from the good work that you have done for folks to want to take a chance on something like this Two-Face book, and especially to hear you talk about it, your passion for Batman, for Gotham, for Two-Face, and the type of story you want to tell, comes through. in what you've put out on social media and, you know, in talking to you now. And I just think it just sounds like a very exciting series for me personally. Like I said, as an old man and an attorney, it just
I'm
sounds
older
like
than you, by the way. I'll point that out. You say
well,
you're 45.
spiritual 45.
I'm
Spiritually,
I'm
I'm very old.
48.
Oh,
I've
I don't
got 3
believe it.
years on you. That's
I
true.
don't
I know.
I don't believe it. Yeah, it just sounds like exactly what I am looking for in this, you know, type of series. And I'm very excited for it. And yeah, the preview pages look fantastic. And yeah, I can't wait for folks to check it out and start reading it, Christian.
Oh, I'm so excited. I mean, I'm like, I've already scheduled the 4th of December to be not have any work on because I know what I'll be like. I'm just going to be checking like kind of like comic book roundup and the aforementioned League of Comic Book Geeks and like social Blue Sky and Instagram and Twitter a little bit, and just like, you know, having a look at what people think. You know, I'm desperate. When people get to the last page, all bets are off. All bets are off.
Well, I encourage listeners to check it out. It's out December 4th. It's the new Two-Face series. Christian Ward, Fábio Veras, yeah, Ivan Plascencia, Hassan Otsmane-Elhaou. And yeah, also listeners, because we love indie comics here, I would be remiss. I talked about it at the beginning. Dark Horse's Tommy Gun Wizards. It's like a 4-issue
Yeah,
series. You can get it. Get it. It's
yeah,
great. If you like gangster
yeah.
stuff, wizard
Machine
stuff,
Gun
it's so
Wizards.
much
We have to
fun.
change the title.
Oh, Machine Gun Wizards. That's
Yeah,
right.
Machine Gun Wizards. And we started
Did I
at
just
Tommy
say
Gun.
Tommy Gun Wizards?
Yeah.
Oh,
First 2
okay.
issues with Tommy Gun, and then we had to change the we changed the title. We won't say anything about that. Yeah, Machine Gun Wizards. It's
Yeah.
1930s prohibition, but it's not
Yeah.
alcohol that's been outlawed. It's magic. And Elliot Ness and the Untouchables have to take down a magic-powered mob led by Al Capone,
I
and
love it.
it's so good.
Yeah.
Do you know what we wanted? It was going to be a much longer series, and then the pandemic happened,
Yeah.
yeah, it got curtailed. But we actually had the second arc greenlit,
Oh, really?
which was going to be really like, yeah, it was going to be really good. I was going to do something with the torso killer in the second arc, because that
Oh,
was Ness as well, it was going to be like kind of like, you know. Oh, it was so good. But
oh,
you know, who knows? Who knows? Who
one day,
I
one day,
I
please.
don't think I don't think this is the last you've heard of Machine Gun Wizards. I think
Okay.
we're gonna hear about them again. That's
I
all I'm
hope
gonna
so.
say.
Christian, this has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on, talking
You're welcome.
comics and DC with me. So listeners, check it out. Also, I have to give every episode, I give a shout out to my brother, Bobby, the Cryptid Creator Corner's #1 most dedicated fan. Bob, my
Yeah.
younger brother, Bobby, listens to all my episodes. And, yeah, I think Bobby's also a Batman fan, and I think he's probably going to like this
Bobby
Two-Face
sounds like a
series as well.
he sounds like a smart guy.
He's very smart. He is. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, he's my little brother, but okay. Well, he's smart. He's smart. So Christian, thanks again,
You're
listeners.
welcome.
Two-Face, December 4th, 2024. Let me know if you get it. Find me on Blue Sky. I'll probably make a TikTok of it because I've been trying to talk about comics more on TikTok.
Nice.
And yeah, let me know what it is you're reading. Let us know if you like the podcast and let us know what you think about it. Let us know we're doing a good job. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good night, and I'll see you next time.
Cheers.